And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we waiting for? Michael Miller and his band, right here at
Here we are, Frances Reaves, Esquire.
South Miami land. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good, you're lovely as ever. Terrific smile.
Oh, thank you. Well, ever since we've had Lori Jennings, I've been trying to pick up some of her tips. It's hard to get famous. I want everybody out there to know that. I mean, I'm in shock. CNN hasn't called us and asked us to do.
What kind of deal is that?
Exactly. I don't want Fox to call us, but I wouldn't mind CNN.
There goes half the audience.
But so we were talking before we went on air, just a little bit about what's happening, you know, the boosters, a little bit of COVID. And I had the opportunity to experience just recently, in the month of August, what happens when you're not vaccinated and how it impacts other people. One of my clients is in an assisted living center, in a lovely place, and the Parent Your Parents had taken her out of her dilapidated house. She was sort of a recluse. She had two caretakers, and they were there 12 to 15 hours and then let her sleep
At her
house in South Miami. And when I was brought in, it was because she could no longer live in the house. One of the caretakers was leaving, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it's a long story, but we got her into this assisted living center. She took about 6 months. She got used to it. I'd go visit her about once a week. We'd sing together. Just, you know, I mean, she has no one. So except me and the woman we pay to come 3 times a week. So the woman who came 3 times a week never got vaccinated. And even though my client had the Pfizer vaccine and had had it for ages, again, you know, she's 87 years old. And so she had a breakthrough case because the companion got COVID. So she had a breakthrough case. And I was furious, of course, as was the assisted living center, because she didn't bother to call them to tell them that she had COVID. So they had to test the entire center. You know, I mean, you can imagine nobody's very happy at this point, especially me, because now my client is sent to Mount Sinai. This is an 87-year-old woman. She's sent to Mount Sinai. When the fever goes away, she is sent into isolation back at the assisted living facility campus. You know, they have an isolation room or area. And then after isolation, she's now sent to rehab. So the entire month of August, she has gone from this independent woman in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I was there this week looking at memory care rooms for her, because I saw her on FaceTime and I knew there were issues. She had this thing where she's constantly scratching her eye, and she was really, really pale, and she didn't even want to talk to me. And you know, I'm her lifeline normally.
How long have you been taking care of her?
2 years, 2.5 years. So after I got over the tears, and that's a bad thing about this business. I just realized, you know, I mean, I wanted my client to die as an independent woman, you know, as the best that she could be. And now, you know, she went into this major cognitive dip, and, you know, she needs 24-hour care.
Are you saying that was preceded immediately by COVID?
Yes.
You think that was a big part of it?
I think so. Well, what happens, and I've said this several times when we discuss our elders, what happens is if you go into the hospital, the older you are, the harder it is to get your cognitive function back, simply because they take away all your control. And then, you know, I've written about this, the Medicare Scam, I call it, where you're in the hospital. After 3 days, you're fine, but you know, we had you on medication. You might want to go to rehab for 3 weeks because that's what Medicare pays for. And, they have these other places that they're partners with, et cetera, and they put them into rehab. So it's an entire month. In my client's case, it was a little more than a month, but it was all because someone didn't get vaccinated. That's it. That's the only reason. If she hadn't gotten COVID, she would not have gone. And the good news is she's still living, right? But is this the life? It's not the life I wanted for her.
So when we look at that, so she's 87, she was functioning okay,
pretty well.
All right, and all of a sudden, she is, instead of being somewhat independent, she became totally dependent because she didn't have to do anything. And we see that, especially with a lot of folks that are been working from home,
right,
rather than going to the office and getting that other stimulation of being responsive and being around other people, rather than it's your dog and your cat and you doing work at home. There's some people that I know, I can see their abilities to communicate have shifted, right? And they're more reclusive because they don't need to be more than that, because the food gets brought to their house and they sit in their house.
I can't believe that.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about some figures that I've heard. Miami-Dade County, according to the Miami Herald, has about 63% of people have been vaccinated.
Right.
But we've had 600,000 plus reported cases of COVID. Reported. That's 20% plus of the people. That's every fifth person in Miami-Dade County at some point or another has had COVID. That doesn't count
20%.
That does not count the people that are sick and knew it and didn't report it.
Right.
So, especially recently, where there've been a lot, and I probably know 15 people recently that have got it in the last 6 weeks. One had symptoms 2 days, one 4, and one 10. But most importantly, there's a woman that I know that was tested. She thought she was exposed. She got tested twice. It was negative, because maybe it hadn't surfaced yet. A couple, 3, 4 days later, she tested positive. She goes back a week later, it tested negative. She goes back again, it tested positive. And today she's going back.
Oh my gosh.
So, and you say, okay, well, maybe the first two, it hadn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
All right. But for sure, the one that was negative, all right, and she's symptomatic, all right,
yeah.
cold and, foggy head and can't smell, can't taste. And she even said to me, it's not accurate, Michael. And she went someplace. She didn't do the one yourself.
Right.
So you can do that. So my suggestion is, if you get a positive or negative, go in again and get it again.
Right.
At least one other time, maybe 2 other times, and you can see, because the point of what you're bringing up, if you don't care about yourself, fine, but care about your family.
Exactly.
Right? That you don't want to be around them. We had an event not too long ago at the house. Everybody had to go on a Wednesday and get tested, and they got the results. If it was not negative, all right, don't come to the house. Right?
Yeah.
Period. All right.
Right.
And that's the way it was.
Yeah.
Right? I was with a group, 3 couples. They're all vaccinated. 3 had it. I was with another group, 8 people, 2 kids. 6 out of the 8, including the 2 kids, had it. All right. It is predominant. It is.
And all these people are vaccinated. So it's
except for the little 2 kids. Yeah, the other 6
so it's
people.
definitely a breakthrough.
Yep.
And it's coming. If you have kids, it's totally coming from the kids.
Yes. And we see that, and thank goodness for the school board, where they say, hey, listen, this is it. You got to wear masks. And there is a thing called the medical opt-out. I've seen the form. It's really not. They make accommodations, right, which is you have to wear the mask. If you need an extra break, you can go outside, like a bathroom break. Then they have somebody that will come talk to you, so you get too anxious on that. We had a couple in here last week, and they said, listen, our daughter, they didn't say what was wrong with her, but she can't be wearing that. We had our doctor saying, but at the end of the day, all right, most of us are getting through this, all right? And I've seen that the figures, by the way, in local facilities, where it's down about 40% since a high of a month ago.
Right.
Of people in the hospital.
Right.
I don't know about anywhere else. We got our information from the hospital. Who's in the hospital? All right. And they seem to be pretty accurate. All right. And also, I know people that have gone to Tropical Park and they've got the Regeneron there.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Which is like pretty nifty.
What is it?
If you are really symptomatic, you reach certain criteria, it's a cocktail, and you get it, right? And then
it's a shot.
You can do 2 things. When you get the IV, they give you an option. It's 30 to 45 minutes, or they take all the juice and they'll inject you 4 different places, all right? And you can do that, all right?
So for those of us who have Botox,
No,
you can get
come on.
injected 4
Frances,
different
not you.
places.
Any some recitly?
No, I
Or-
haven't. I
That
only.
was years ago. We don't need it anymore.
Were that were so.
All right. So what else is going on? Parent your parents. You got 2-minute warning.
Well, 2-minute warning is done. I sent it out, and every agent has their one way. They tell you how they want it. I spent 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday. Sunday is my book day, so I spent 4 or 5 hours on the way she wanted it. It only took her till 10 a.m. the next morning to reject it. So,
What is the proposal?
woo!
The proposal is to the.
It's a book proposal
Okay.
to the agent.
Okay.
So I've sent out 3, and the other 2 I haven't heard from. But this one, I mean, she was the last one I sent it out to, and because she had a different format. And each one, wants this, or this, right? It's like, okay.
What are some of those things that they want?
Well, first of all, you have to find books that are competitive or like your book. And then you have to go in and find the ISBN number. Then you have to, and believe it or not, this is all on Amazon. I now know this. And then you have to see the generics and where it placed. Like, none of the books that I compared mine to had placed higher than 125th on their genre list. So what that tells me is maybe I add more sex, but also
Tommy, war.
Actually,
say that again. Look right at the camera and say that.
Well, I'm thinking about adding more sex. What else do you do? And anyone who follows Your Parents USA, you're going to love this week's Instagram, because we have the 3 best sexual positions for over 70s.
Wow.
I wish you guys could see Michael's face.
Wow. I'm going to try to imagine that. Tommy, you.
I got no guesses.
So
I would say close to an emergency room.
Well, it's funny because I was looking at the renderings that we've done for this particular ad, and not our ad, but our post. And the one where we have the man and woman, it reminded me of so many movies, and it really doesn't matter the age. It's just that pose, of the woman just luxuriating in the man as he's behind her and she has her eyes closed. And whether you're 80 or you're 30 or 20.
How about 60?
Well, 62. But I'm just saying, it's exactly the same. You don't see yourself as a person who's falling because gravity has worn
You're
on
having
you.
a really good day today. Botox and now falling.
So it's something we should talk about a little bit more. And when I was talking to Frances Alban, who does Alban Communications, who does my social media, she was talking about how hard it was to find sexier photos of older people. It's just hard. I mean, I don't know whether we don't want to think of our mom and dad having sex. I mean, hello, how else am I around?
And if we watch movies,
Yeah.
not the kind on, but on regular TV.
Not the porno
right?
channel.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't watch that?
Jerry Springer's got to say everybody does, all right? But when we see it, there's a lot of very attractive younger people that are in love, but the reality is the older couples, when you can see the shine between them, you see the connection, it certainly is strong, and it's a good feeling, right?
It is,
and,
yes.
But certainly there's an audience of that, which is around their age or older.
Right.
Because a 30-year-old doesn't want to be looking
at his mom or dad.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. Yeah. No.
So,
unless what's a guy who is married to, I'm looking at his face. He was married to Bruce Willis's ex-wife, Demi Moore, Ashton Kutcher.
He's now with another.
No, he's now with someone younger than she was. She was about 20 years his senior.
Wow.
Yeah. But she, she said he was an old soul. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Well, but we were just talking about mom and dad. So everybody has their thing.
Tell me she's really hitting. Okay. Okay. So
I hope Ashton Kutcher doesn't.
okay.
Either.
So let's go. So you have your book. Your book is written.
My book is written. Yeah.
So one of the things that people, that we all need to understand, you can create the content, you can create the table, whatever you make, and you can
Right.
make it, and it can be beautifully done. That's one part of it. And the other part is how you move that to the marketplace,
Selling
and
it.
how you promote it so that people want to buy what you have.
Right. And I thought this show would do it.
Where's the book? Right? We have a young man up front, Aaron Guerrero, who wrote a book. It's called How to Eat Healthy in an Unhealthy World. I think he wrote that after spending a year here. So his second book was How to Write a Book.
Oh, you told me that. Yeah.
And it's like, wow, because that's what a lot of people,
Right.
okay, I can go do that. Yeah, that's great. All right.
Then what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people think, they go buy a fishing pole and fishing equipment and that's stuff. No.
No, you have to learn to fish.
Yes. And you got to figure if you're going to fish on a pier or on the beach or you're going to go out on a boat. And I've been watching a lot of fishing recently. I see some people fish with handrails.
What's
right?
a handrail?
It's just a thing like this with
like twine.
And they pull it in.
Oh, yeah.
Just
There's a lot of that on the Rickenbacker Bridge.
Yeah, it's just a different sport, on how to do that.
And fly fishing,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And walking out in the water.
Yeah.
So what is different today about the way you're looking at your book and the distribution as compared for the moment you said, I'm going to write a book?
Well, what I've learned in trying to sell this to a publisher or an agent is you have to have your own platform. So as a consequence, what I've been doing is I list what we do here. I list all my columns and where they're published, which is also, thank you, Miami Community News.
Thank you.
And I talk about what I, all the avenues where we can sell this book. I mean, you can go to any women's conference and sell a book on parenting your parents, even though it's really about living your best life. But you can't do that until you've planned to live your best life. I mean, it's really that simple. So to me, and that's what I tell them, that this is an easy sell. Plus, the book itself, there are several chapters, like the chapter that talks about all the documents you need. I mean, you can sell that to Reader's Digest. You can just sell that as an abridged, what you need, or AARP magazine, or more, and there's also the chapter on sex and sex toys. I mean, that's also a very sellable product. And that's what I try to point out to them, because you have to have a platform. I mean, I have a website. All of my articles are on the website, but you have to have so much more. And really, the bad news is because everything's been virtual as far as the book, all the writers' conferences, they haven't been able to see me as Frances Reaves. They've only seen me on a screen.
Part of what makes us buy or want to see a product is the personality that's connected.
Exactly.
And if there's no personality so why should they pick up that?
Right.
And in the old days, there might be an author that goes to a bookstore and look at them, look, they're very nice, or they're very funny, and here's the book. So that's been sort of changed a lot, all right?
And Mitch Kaplan, I mean, everything's been virtual with Books and Books. I mean, the one they're doing with Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade's wife, Gabrielle Union, the actress, producer, Tommy?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, they're doing it at the Arts Center with them on stage. I'm thinking to myself, well, thank goodness. I mean, those two.
So writer also has to be somehow a marketing guy in their head, because otherwise, all right, you're just going to sit in the corner. There was a guy, Mercury Morris. You remember him?
Oh, yeah.
1972 Dolphins. He wrote a book, which I read on a weekend. It was really neat. All right. He had in his corner, years later, in the corner, piles and piles and piles of that book, because he couldn't figure out how to get back to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Right? And Tony Bryant, remember him?
Yeah.
So
Well,
Tony Bryant worked here for a while.
oh, he did?
Yeah, he did. When he walked in, I said, Tony Bryant, Black Panthers? He goes, yes, sir. And so he wrote a book, all right, which was really enthralling, and how he spent many years in the Kestrel's prison.
Oh, wow.
And the times that he escaped. And he was a Black guy that learned to speak Spanish, and he was a medic there. And he was here for a couple of years until he died. So there are lots of personalities that go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the creation of the book that causes the writer to go out and go out and do that.
Right. And today, I mean, the other thing I talk about is my LinkedIn, all my social media that I do for Parent Your Parents. I mean, that can also be done for the 2-minute warning. And I'm getting ready to create, because I'm sure this is going to happen, a website for me and the book.
People want to know about the writer.
Right.
They want to know what is there, all right?
Right.
And when you look at all the different mediums that people can inject their personality into it, it really matters a lot. Can we talk about life insurance for folks?
Yeah.
All right. So lots of times people don't know, if you have a policy and an annuity, that after a while, when you get to be a certain age, that starts going up.
Right.
Dramatically.
Like $10,000 or $20,000. I think it's the age of 70,
Right.
which is really too young. It should be 75.
Yeah. So lots of times, so folks, if you're over 60, you need to start looking at that.
Look
and
at
see
that
your
policy.
plans, all right?
Yeah.
And because you won't be, you might be surprised. Also, one of the things I've heard is lots of folks have said to their children, listen, I'm not going to be around much longer. You start paying the policy, whatever amount you want that you're willing to pay, that's the policy.
Yeah.
Right. And I spoke to an agent. He said that's not uncommon, to do that, rather than bearing the increased cost to the 75-year-old guy or woman to be able to do that.
Do you still have life insurance?
I do.
Yeah, I don't. I don't have any kids.
Right.
I have long-term care.
I have that too.
Yeah.
And you know what caused it? It was when people have enough pain, they will go do something about it.
Right.
And I might have mentioned when my father had a stroke in the 90s, I saw how much it was to care for him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? We got to go do this.
Yeah.
So all the Millers got that, and I've had it, and it wasn't, our rate is very favorable.
Yeah, because it was 10, 15 years ago now,
Yes.
20 years ago now.
And so how much does it cost to be in a facility nowadays? More or less.
I have a client who is not a U.S. citizen, and for a room which she shares with another person in a nursing home, $9,000 a year.
A year?
I mean, a month.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Yes.
$9,000.
Yep.
That's $118,000 a year.
So in The Godfather, remember how the old man died? It was out in the garden.
Oh, yeah.
And he went, and then the grandson or maybe great grandson finds him. That's going to be me. That's how I'm going.
Yeah. I think that's how we all. I mean, that's why I was so upset about my client after COVID. It's just, this is not what I wanted for her. It's not that she's had a bad life, and she has all these great photos of her that remind her of who she was then, which is really what I want in my assisted living. I want all these videos that I can play over and over again. In fact, I have clients, they're both retired doctors, and they were also competitive ballroom dancers.
Oh, very nice.
And so what they do when he's having lunch, he had a stroke and he's in a wheelchair. He watches them doing their dancing when he's eating. And I'm thinking, that's what I want to do.
Speaking of wanting to do stuff, at some point you made a decision to focus in on senior care.
Right.
How did that occur?
Mom and Dad. I think I've told you that story. It was really, there's nobody taking care of them. It's the same. I mean, most of my clients have no one taking care of them. None, and so Mom and Dad, honestly, if I hadn't been a lawyer, I don't know what would have happened. I have no idea what would have happened to them. And I wouldn't have known any better, but for the fact that I'd spent 3 years in law school and 10 years practicing law. And I went into seniors because all of a sudden, just taking them through it was like, whoa,
And exhausting for the caregiver.
exhausting for the caregiver, but also, I mean, what my father, as his wife, is losing it. I mean, mom's, slowly but surely going into cognitive decline. And what does he do? He lost 15 pounds. I mean, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we've got to do something here. But we did have his celebration prior to his death. We had a huge 90th birthday party for him in Houston, Texas, where they lived at the time. And everybody came in from all over. And so, we had his celebration. Then after that, we moved him to Atlanta, where my brother was. And first he lived with my brother and sister-in-law, and mom, escaped from her first facility. I mean, we could go on and on. Charlotte, you got to love her. Nothing. She wanted, you're not keeping me. I sort of love that spunk about her.
So when my dad was in a healthcare facility in the wheelchair, there was a phone in the room. So he'd call 911 all the time. So they were required to respond. They'd be calling me. I go, so what do you want from me? Disconnect the phone. Wow. What am I going to do? Yeah. I said, you're the last stop. We've already been through all the other stops.
That's so funny. Yeah. But you kind of admire them, right?
Yeah, of course.
It just shows how smart they are. I mean, the fact that mom was in a memory care unit and she pulled that fire alarm and all those doors unlocked. And they were like, we hadn't thought of this. And then everybody leaves. I mean, these people, not everybody left, but Charlotte did because she could. And then they didn't even know she was gone.
Nice.
Until the police brought her back. It's like, hello, guys. But, what a hassle. However, it's a great story. On the other hand, that is our family. I mean, mom and dad met. I think I told you this. Because she was a Pan Am flight attendant. She'd come into Rio and they'd been at the bar and it was Carnival. She and the crew had been at the bar and the bar closed and mom wasn't ready for the bar to close. So she's up in her room. And so she sees that there are lights, next door. She says, well, maybe they're having a party. And she walks the ledge of that hotel. I mean, this is in the 50s, but she walks the ledge of that hotel. And there was my father in the room next door. And I mean, we all learned this in grand Reeves style. There was alcohol in that room.
Oh, that is a surprise. I'm in shock. Tommy's going, me too.
So I mean, it was.
Let's look down the road 6 months. So where are we at in our local community, throughout, and then in the United States and throughout the world? What does it look like here?
Well, I mean, I think in 6 months we will totally be ready to understand that COVID is going to be here for the foreseeable future. And so either you are, I mean, it's different with the flu shot because you don't give the flu unless you have the flu. And the flu shot is a 50% flu shot, right? Whereas with COVID, it starts out, the Pfizer and the Moderna start out after the 2 shots at 90% and then sort of falls off. And what we don't know, but we're finding out, I mean, this is, as we discussed earlier, not even a year old. So what we don't know is, are we just going to need a booster every year? Are we going to need a cocktail every year? And I think that's, so in 6 months, maybe isn't Gamma after Delta?
Yeah. So
and there's no
by the way,
airline.
maybe the pharmaceutical companies be able to lower the price on all their other drugs with all the money that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
Who was that guy, remember, who bought the EpiPen and marked it up from $80 to $800 or something?
He wound up getting in a bunch of trouble for that.
Appropriately so.
Yes. So right now we have the issue of the people that are frustrated with how the end of the Afghan war was. And maybe that's going to sort of blend away. All right. We certainly have the economy, which is, it's sort of odd, if you will. Right?
No, I don't get the economy.
Right? And we were at a couple of restaurants. They said we just don't have people. All right.
Oh, I know.
And I see you see that, and that'll get straightened out in a couple of months, I suspect.
I suspect.
And so for the people that are not working, at some point they're going to have
September
to do
5th.
something, or they're going to live on a whole lot less money. But at some point,
September 5th is when everything ends.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
September 5th.
Oh.
That's the last of the federal aid.
oh, well, shucks. So,
what are we at? The
and
second
certainly
3 more days?
employers, especially recently, got a little hesitant, and we got hesitant here, which was okay. COVID's going away, so we'll start hiring some people. We didn't have any problem, but then all of a sudden this comes, and so do I want to start with somebody younger, all right, and go through it, all right, because we're very protected here. We were really lucky. We did a lot of stuff, and I don't want to bring in anybody new, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to have it or not have it, but
that has a different, I mean, in other words, you have a culture here,
yes,
which you do, and it's a caring culture.
Yeah. And so we see that, and thank you for noticing that. And that we say, all right, I don't want anybody to get in jeopardy, all right? So we're just going to hang out, all right? We're going to do what we need to do. In a month or two, it's going to get better. And the figures, again, for a hospitalization here, it looks like since the middle of August, it's gone down over 30%.
Right.
And I think that's very good news, for us. The county has been really tremendous,
right,
opening up. Some of their facilities are open 24 hours a day, which is like, it's a wow moment. That's either for the test or for the vaccine.
Right.
Extraordinary. And
Miami-Dade, I have to say, has been right on that bandwagon. I told you, we're going up to Illinois, and I was speaking with my husband's cousin, and she goes, well, here, we don't have boosters yet. Those won't be around for another couple months or so. And it was like, and that's the way it is. I'm like, oh, I didn't want to say, oh, really? Well, you might want to come to Miami.
So one of the things we do know with the protection dropping, not quite in half, but a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's why right?
That's why everybody here got a booster.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, within a week,
mm-hmm.
everybody's there, and it's like perfect, all right? And it was really tremendous. And I would tell people that I cared about, listen, this is how you can go do that, all right?
Uh-huh.
And then when you would hear the reports coming back, it was first 90, and then it was 70, and then it was 65, and you go, oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're getting down.
Yes. Yeah. And so we have a couple of Jewish holidays coming up.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Happy holidays,
Rosh
to everybody.
Hashanah, and then is it Rosh Hashanah first?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
In a couple of days. So my regards to my friends. And
what do you say for Rosh Hashanah, Michael?
You're asking the wrong guy. All right? I'm
I
along for the ride.
And then,
but I'm going to be at a rabbi's house on Monday night, so I'm going to find out again, even though I've had 10 years of it.
I know you say something in the same for the High Holy Day. I know Shabbat Shalom for Friday nights.
Very good.
Yeah, and I used to know Rosh Hashanah because I studied Kabbalah for a while up at the Kabbalah Center in North Miami. I really enjoy how other people think about themselves and in relation to the world. I had one of the best lectures at the Kabbalah Center, and it was about world peace.
When people go to a group like that, there's already a mindset when you walk in,
right?
And open to whatever the subject is,
it's
so you're more apt to internalize it. Many years ago, my wife and I were taking a class that was called the Course in Miracles, and I didn't get it. Finally, after about a month, I said, "Susan, I think I get this." and I said, "I think it's a religious class, but I'm not sure." Then I said to myself, well, if you think you got it, how much of it do you think you really got?
It's true.
I realized it was only this little tiny thing. It was like got into my brain. Oh, and it's by being around the other people, then you can share. It's just not the conversation. It's the genre that is there.
It's true.
And the feelings that are there of openness.
I had a great tour of the Scientology Center in Los Angeles. I mean, Tom Cruise wasn't there, but he's a little shorter than I am anyway. But
about this much shorter. By the way, were you ever a stewardess?
No.
Your mother was.
Mom was.
Was she tall and beautiful?
She wasn't tall, but she was a beautiful woman.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
she was tall.
Thomas, she does have that look as a stewardess. It was either being a stewardess or being an attorney.
Well, I interviewed, I think, with American Airlines at the same time I was going to law school. So I chose law school. It's so funny that you would ask, but I'm pretty tall for flight attendants at 5'10".
Okay. Speaking of that, you had the opportunity to interview
Lori.
Lori Jennings a few
Uh-huh.
weeks ago. What a magnificent! You guys are really, really
She
good.
was lovely, yeah.
Lot of woman power. I won't say
Yeah.
girl power. Woman power.
Yeah.
It was really great. And my hats
And
off
she
to you.
was so personal. That was it. That's the other great thing about elders. With children, you're protecting them a little bit more because they still have privacy. You want them to grow up, but when we're talking about our moms, our dads, our loved ones, it's a little bit more like, I want you to know that it's tough. It's a little bit harder. I you know I've started sharing that my husband is beginning to lose cognitive function, and it went like this. And I think now, and we've found a doctor to sort of maybe get him in a trial and all this stuff. And at this point, it's mild, but it's different. I mean, I'm sort of, A, I didn't know this was going to happen to me, but B, it's like, wow, all right, I it tests. It doesn't really test my patience, because in Tom's case, my husband's name is Tom. In Tom's case, what happens is he knows it's happening, and that's really hard to watch, because he says, I'm having a vacant day, and
And you and Lori talked about that.
yeah,
It was really significant to feel that openness and see that. And I think that once we can get to that point of acceptance, even though you might not like it,
yeah,
there's some comfort in that.
right,
And
right.
I had an experience with my dad who had had a stroke, and he could barely talk, but he was very animated. And so it was his birthday, and I gave him a birthday card from me. I gave him a birthday card from somebody else who he didn't like. He took it and he threw it down. All right. And so I said, I'm going to test to see if he really knows.
Uh-huh.
So I picked it up. I waited a few more minutes,
Mhm.
and I gave it back to him. And he threw it down again. So then I knew for sure.
Sure, he
right,
knew.
that he was there. Even though he couldn't communicate it verbally, he did physically. So,
Yeah.
folks, because somebody's got a stroke doesn't mean they don't have feelings. And I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Well, that's true. They do have feelings.
Yes.
No, and you have to honor and respect them. Those people who died after Hurricane Irma from heat, they died from heat. Those organs shut down, and we didn't have morphine there for them. We had nothing. They felt the pain and couldn't talk about it.
Yes. I used to work in the hospital. I would see people that were in pretty bad shape. It was really mind bending for me to be able to see that. And there's a book, When Johnny Comes Marching Home Again.
Mhm.
All right, no arms, no legs,
Oh, wow.
and he couldn't talk.
Oh my gosh.
So the story was about his thoughts through the whole thing.
Wow.
And at one point, he could tell when it was Christmas. This is the story.
Yeah.
And then at one point, he was trying to roll over on the IV, and the nurse was saying, "You can't do that. You'll kill yourself. If you
He's
do
like,
that."
yeah.
And it really made you think about life and where we are at.
Well, I have, there's a man I know who's 101 years old, and he is now getting some growths on his chest, and he's going to the doctor this week. Is today Thursday? He's going to the doctor today, and he's going to find out. And he says, the thing I hate is they're going to tell me that I'm too old to be operated on. And he goes, I'd much rather die on the operating table than sit around and wait for cancer to eat me.
Yep.
And why can't we respect those wishes?
Yes. And Dr. Jack
Kevorkian.
He was 25 years ahead of time, maybe
Mhm.
30 years. And so I think as we get older, you start making some choices on.
Well, the bad news, in 11 states, you can choose to die. You can choose assisted suicide. But if you lose mentis compass, they're not allowed to kill you.
Yes.
Because, if you were, we're so paternalistic. Like, I don't know, if at 50 I was willing to die, at 80 when I'm drooling and incontinent, Of course, I'm willing to die. I don't understand how we get from here to here. I don't understand why at this age, at 60, I can't sit down and say, should I lose my mind? However they want to do it. I don't want to live. I want you to go ahead. I don't want to pay $9,000 a month for a nursing home. I'm sure that my client doesn't want to pay $9,000 a month. And we wonder why all the money is spent at end of life.
So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We had at one point we had about 8 dogs. All right, and every dog in their last 2 weeks cost $1,000.
Yeah.
All right, it doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. That's what it's going to be from the time you take it to the vet and do all this stuff, and you're going, oh, look at this.
I know.
And it's quite a somber moment. I know that means something to you. So next time we meet, we can continue talking about life, pursuit of happiness, our cycle.
Yep.
And
sex.
And sex.
I wish
when we
you
first met right
wish-
here a year ago, you started with, and Tommy's my proof here, a witness. Michael, did you know that seniors are having sex? And my response to you
I know, it was so
was,
funny, Michael.
do I have to wait another 5 years? And my wife will not say a word. All right, so sign us out of here.
All right. Well, hey, Miami Community News. Thank you once again for hosting Parent Your Parents. You can find Mike Miller, publisher of Miami Community News, at mcnews.com. Right?
Michael at Community Newspapers. You know what?
You have so many.
I know. I have these different faces. Michael at communitynewspapers.com.
Oh, communitynewspapers.com.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of them,
Okay.
right, depending on what persona.
Well, I only have one.
Okay, which is?
ParentYourParents.com.
Okay, ParentYourParents.com. You can find out a lot about her, where she's coming from, and you're going to read about how to take care of folks in the future.
Including Michael and me.
Yes, and look for a book coming up soon, The 2-Minute Warning by Frances
Boomers,
Reaves, Esquire.
booming.
Say goodbye and all that good stuff.
Bye.
See you guys. Thank you.